It might be still a few months before IPL fever grips the nation once again, yet the big league is once again the talk of the town, and it's easy to understand why. You have the auction coming up now in less than a month, and before the auction, franchises go through the rather thankless and sometimes very arduous task of figuring out the list of players that they've retained and therefore also coming up with the number of players that they have released. It is the process that every team goes through every year, because if there's always going to be an auction, whether it be a mini one or a big one, but the process can be very, very tough and will more often than not determine how it is that a team is going to approach a particular auction. So obviously now we're past that deadline date. We know what exactly each team's released list and retained list is. We know how much they have to spend. So in this video, what we're going to do is we'll look at majorly what are the areas that, besides of course looking at for each and every team in a little bit of detail, what are the major areas they can spend at. More importantly, we'll also be looking at which teams have the most money and therefore are likelier to go for the big buys come this particular mini auction. And we'll start off, we're going in alphabetical order with Chennai Super Kings. Believe me when I say they have some pretty interesting, let's say, players who they're going to be targeting. If you go through, leave aside the retained players for now, this is there for information purposes. The released players, some of these names are pretty big. There's of course Ben Stokes. He's pulled him out of this year's IPL. Raidu is retired. Dwayne Pretorius is was a bit of a surprise, but injuries definitely played a part. Then of course Kyle Jamieson and Sasana Magala, also players that were released, along with K. Bhagat Verma, Subhranshu Senapati and Akash Singh. That means that if you're CSK, you've now got 31.4 crores to spend, and you've got a lot of fast bowlers to replace. Because again, just look at the number of players: Akash Singh, Kyle Jamieson, Sasana Magala, Dwayne Pretorius. That's bowlers that are necessary very, very soon. You need to be bringing in a lot of bowlers in this particular auction. Thankfully for your CSK, 31.4 crores, that is the amount of money they have to be spending on players. Again, if you look at the rest of their squad, it does bear a very, very settled look. They do have a good number of all-rounders, and what they do need more so than anything is, let's say, they need some Indian talent, because again, they have 3 overseas slots available, but last year one of the major concerns for them at times was the Indian bowling. Can that step up? That's something that is remaining to be seen. But again, 31.4 crores, expect CSK to be making a couple of big buys, if not more, in this particular auction. The Delhi Capitals are another team that have gone for the hire and fire approach this time around, which is a bit of an unusual thing, because ever since they've come under the management of JSW, they've been somewhat more on the secure side. But again, look at that list of released players. My goodness. Riley Russo, Chetan Sakaria, Robin Pal, Manish Pandey, Phil Salt, Mustafizur Rahman. There's a Kamlesh Nagarkoti, Ripal Patel, Sarfaraz Khan, Aman Khan and Priyam Gar. That is a lot of talent that has been released, and therefore a lot of slots. There's 9 slots that they have available in their squad. They've got nearly 29 crores. In fact, 28.95 crores is the exact purse amount that they have left to bring in quite a lot of players. Because again, if you look at their team, the playing 11, at least on paper, seems pretty sorted, but there is a severe lack of depth, which does happen, to be fair, when you've released 9 players all at one shot. And some of these names are surprising as well. Again, Riley Russo was someone who you could say was probably one of their better performers last year. That's not saying much, but still. Robin Pal, his inability to play spin has cost him a spot big time here. Phil Salt, by the way, they spent a good bit of money on, so I'm surprised there. Mustafizur, another seasoned campaigner, they've said no thank you. So it does seem like a little bit of a soft reset before, of course, 2025's mega auction, assuming the mega auction takes place, and they don't go for some sort of a draft system. But again, look at let's say, the number of players released, and that's why they too have a pretty huge sum ready to play with come the auction. Expect to see the Delhi Capitals very actively involved, considering they have 28.95 crores to spend. The Gujarat Titans have a surprising amount of money for a team that on paper looks very sorted. The core of the 2022-23 team that actually both won the IPL and then made it to the final of another, very much in place and intact. The main reason they have that much money is because, of course, Hardik Pandya was at the very last minute traded out of the team. So with no Hardik Pandya there, that is a lot of money they have to spare, because otherwise, if you're looking at the names of the players who they've released, really no one screams, let's say, must start. Yash Dayal, poor guy, I think ever since those Rinku Singh sixes, his career hasn't been the same. Then there's of course KS Bharat, Shivam Mavi, who despite being bought for big money didn't play a game. So another one who they've used to kind of free some money off. Urvil Patel, Pradeep Sangwan, and of course Odian Smith, Dasun Shanaka, and Alzari Joseph. So again, if you really look at all of these players, you're looking at them and saying, no, this is, none of these guys really are going to be sure shot guaranteed starters in this particular franchise. All of these guys at best will be bench players. So Gujarat Titans bear a very settled look, but 38.15 crores is a big sum. And where does that come from? Hardik Pandya being released, and of course Shivam Mavi being released. Mavi, remember, he had made his T20I debut in 2023, then didn't really get a game for Gujarat, despite them making the finals. He didn't play a part at all. So him being released freed up a lot of money for them. Very, very advantageous. So good amount of money to add to what is already a very solid squad. Kolkata Knight Riders are another one of those teams that have decided to go for a bit of a hard reset. Again, if you look at some of the names there, they've been around a while, but if you look at that release players list, I mean, they've got 12 available slots overall, and that is because they've released so many players. Look, there's a Shakib Al Hasan, gone. Litin Das, gone. David Wisa, gone. Arya Desai, N. Jagadisan, Mandeep Singh, Kulwant Khajuraria, Shardul Thakur, Lockie Ferguson, Umesh Yadav, Tim Saudi, Johnson Charles. You look at half of these guys, by the way, were first choice bowlers last year. Lockie, dead set cert to be starting. Shardul, Umesh Yadav, Tim Saudi played a lot of games. So for KKR, the focus is going to be bowlers, lots and lots of bowlers. Thankfully, especially pace bowlers, because the spin bowling department looks pretty sorted. You've got a Varun Chakravarti, you've got, of course, an Anukul Roy, a Surya Sharma, Sunil Narayan. You're good as far as spinners are concerned, but they do need pretty much a brand new looking pace bowling lineup. Yes, there's a few players there who did well last year. Harshit Rana, I remember, second half of the season really came into his own. So did Vaibhav Arora, but they do need more pace bowlers. At least one or two foreign pace bowlers are definitely going to be targeted by Kolkata Knight Riders, and they do thankfully have the money. 32.7 crores, and well, Pat Cummins is in the auction, so who knows, they may just go and bid big money for him yet again, or someone else. Could very well be. Of all these releases, by the way, the only one that surprised me was Shardul, but it makes sense from a monetary perspective. 10.75 crores is what he has geared, taking on an annual basis. A lot of money for a Shardul. Much as I like him, 10.75 crores, probably a bit much. So they've released him. Maybe their hope is that they'll get him back for a lower price than that, aka the Jaydev Unadkat thing that Rajasthan Royals did pretty much every year. Other than that, it's a good enough side, but they definitely do need to add some quality pace bowlers. Again, that was their problem last year as well. Lockie Ferguson coming in didn't fix matters. Otherwise, the batting seems fairly sorted, and they'll really hope that Shreyas Iyer stays fit. Of course, he is the captain. He's got 32.7 crores now to try and shape the team as he sees fit. Lucknow Super Giants, another team, by the way, not much to spend at all in this case. In fact, 13.15 crores, they are probably one of the smallest purses, but the reason for that is that they, like the Gujarat Titans, have not chosen to release a lot of players. In fact, all the ones they've released are players who wouldn't be first teamers. Let's go through this list. Jaydev Unadkat, not first choice. Daniel Sams, Manan Vora, Swapnil Singh, Karan Sharma, Arpit Guleria, Suryan Shedre, and Karun Nair. Again, none of these players are guaranteed first starters by any stretch of the imagination. So them actually being released this way does not impact LSG in any way, shape or form. In fact, with these 13.5 crores, 6 slots available, they might just look to maybe fill in 3 or 4, because again, you don't need to be filling out the maximum quota of players. You can have less than that, but they can also buy quality players rather than looking to just fill in quantity. Of course, unless there are players available in the end in the speed rounds, they might choose to go that way, but hey, who really knows? Let's see. What with Lucknow, one of the smallest purses, which in a mini auction means you're not going to be spending a lot, but the flip side, it means your side is very, very settled. Mumbai Indians, again, one of those teams who probably made the biggest move of the trade window by bringing in a Hardik Pandya. But aside from that, they too have released a lot of players. The sad reality is, getting Hardik Pandya in basically meant that they, despite releasing so many players, and we'll go over this list in a bit, don't have that much money to spend. Again, look at this list. Cameron Green, gone. Mohammad Arshad Khan, gone. Hrithik Shawkeen, Raghav Goyal, Jofra Archer, Tristan Stubbs, Dwayne Jansen, Jai Richardson, Riley Meredith, Chris Jordan and Sandeep Warrior. That's a lot of players released, and normally taking out a green would have actually freed some space on their wage bill, but the green money was basically a swap for Hardik Pandya, which means 17.75 crores is all they have, and they have 8 slots available, including 4 of them being overseas slots. So you know they're going to have to get creative with how it is they spend their money. They might not look for big buys, but with 8 slots available, you do think they can go for players, especially in the later rounds if they're available on a budget. That will be how it is that MI will have to operate, but we've seen them be able to do that just fine beforehand as well. Punjab Kings, another side that surprisingly this time around, I may say, haven't really spent a lot of money, but they do have a very big purse, as is pretty much always the case in these auctions. 29.1 crores is what they have, and that comes about thanks in no small part that they released a Shah Rukh Khan. Shah Rukh Khan was probably the biggest earner on this list. Aside from him, see, you look at these names: Raj Angad Bawa, Baltej Dhana, Mohit Rathi and Bhanukar Rajapaksa. None of them were big enough earners. Shah Rukh Khan, though, at 9 crores, big earner. And it's a double whammy. Not only did that free up some money on their wage bill, but it also ensured that they can keep Sam Curran, who you remember they splashed 18.5 crores on, but had a pretty disappointing season last year. That being said, and even this year, in fact, he's had a pretty disappointing World Cup. So we don't really know how good or bad he's going to be in Indian conditions. So far, the signs aren't admittedly great, but it's allowed them to keep a hold of him for at least one more season. You know, they could very well go back for Shah Rukh, but at a lesser rate as well. Beyond that, not too much there in terms of the being, 8 slots at max. You've got nearly 30 crores to do the trick. It's not too bad. Of course, with Punjab, they do tend to get a little carried away sometimes. Again, see what happened with Sam Curran. But let's see how it is they move about. They have a lot of money to spend, and that can only be a good thing. Even so, when you consider that their side looks very, very settled. Royal Challengers Bangalore now, and this is always an interesting case. I mean, you could say that they would have had a lot more money if not for this Cameron Green trade which they brought in. Again, Cam Green coming in at the last minute really did tend to throw things a little awry for them, because it meant they don't have as much money. But they have released a lot of players, and it is a bit of a departure from the last few years. We'll quickly go over the list. So, of course, there's no Wanandu Hasaranga. Harshal Patel, who was a purple cap contender in 2021, gone. No Josh Hazelwood, no Finn Allen, no Michael Bracewell, no David Willey, and no Wayne Parnell. That means they've released 6 overseas players, by the way. So that's pretty surprising when you're looking at it. 6 overseas players just gone. And the other players they've released is Sonu Yadav, Avinash Singh, Siddharth Kaul, and Kedar Jadhav. Again, a lot of these guys don't exactly scream game changer at this point. So no surprise that you've seen RCB go this route, get rid of a lot of these players, because if you look at the team they have, does sport a very settled look for the most part. Maybe again 6 slots available, they might look to go for 3-4 players, and with 23.25 crores they do have the propensity to, let's say, bring in a couple of expensive players, because rest of the squad very settled. Rajasthan Royals, by the way, one of those teams who haven't released too many players, but who entered the 2024 auction with the same problems that they entered the 2023 auction. 14.5 crores is all they have, but they need to use that money to bring in a genuine pace bowling all-rounder, because otherwise their batting severely lacks depth. Jason Holder was meant to be that man, by the way, but he didn't quite do the job, and that's why he finds himself on the release list. There's Jason Holder, Obed McCoy and Joe Root, all 3 of whom have been released from the foreign players list. Beyond that, there's no Murugan Ashwin, no KC Karyappa, no KM Asif, Akash Vashish, Abdul Basit gone, and of course Kuldeep Yadav as well has gone. They have of course brought in a couple of players with trades as well. Don't forget they brought in Avesh Khan, so that explains why they're so okay letting go of the legs of Karyappa and or rather Kuldeep Yadav as well. So they don't really need these players per se. They brought in someone like an Avesh Khan. He may be getting to play more regular cricket here, we would hope at least. But other than that, 8 slots available, 14.5 crores. I do again have to see RR getting a little bit more creative here, because again, quite frankly, they just don't have the money to make those many big purchases. Holder was seen as a bit of a bargain for that reason. You brought in someone genuinely good at that price. Didn't work out for them, so he's gone. Root was pulling out of the IPL anyway, so releasing him, no brainer. Beyond that, how it is that they make a team with that little money left, I don't really know. Sunrisers Hyderabad, by the way, this is, I think, if not, I'm not mistaken, the last team that we'll be analyzing. 34 crores, no surprise that SRH have one of the biggest purses available because they just more often than not happen to be that side. They're just very, very good at being able to find all of these ways to kind of, always ensure that they have one of the biggest purses. This time around, they did a very simple thing. They released Harry Brook. Harry Brook was taking up over 13 crores, and beyond that, they got rid of a few other players as well. So Karthik Tyagi gone, Akil Hussain gone, Mayank Dagar was traded out, Adil Rashid, Samarth Vyas, and Vikrant Sharma were the players who found themselves at the chopping block. Now 34 crores with only 6 slots available, it means you could potentially see SRH overpay for at least a couple of players like they did. You can argue for Harry Brook, getting some interesting talent, because again, if you look at a lot of the squad, it doesn't really scream a bad squad, but last year they were just unable to find that right combination, and a lot of that came from having to accommodate a couple of these players here. There, Brook, by the way, was someone they were compelled to pay because of the amount of money they paid for him. Akil Hussain did have a couple of good games, nothing beyond that. Karthik Tyagi, another one, hit or miss more often than not. Adil Rashid barely played a game after the first few games. He struggled, so releasing him made sense. Otherwise, beyond that, this is a decent enough squad. You should be able to make something good from it, and they have 34 crores to fill 6 slots, so you could potentially see them go really big for a few players. And that's it. This is the video is done. We now know the purse money for each and every one of the IPL squads and the amount of money they'll be able to spend come the 2024 auction. Thank you guys so much for joining us in this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment. Which side are you most excited about seeing in the auction and why? You can let us know that. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Please download the SportsTak app, and of course, if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well, and stay tuned to Sports Today. Plenty more coming your way. For now though, from my side, it's bye-bye.